It is No Gifts Please, the parenting podcast by the pair with no real gifts, but a whole lot of gumption. Hey everyone, I'm Steve Noviello.
And I'm Jenny Anchondo.
Always good to see you, my friend.
You too. Another day, another us doing a podcast so we can hang out.
So I'll tell you, we did one a couple of weeks ago that kind of turned into you just discussing my life story with me.
Yeah,
the amount of feedback that I got from like the mom crew at school and my own parents, like apparently that was very entertaining. So
see, we'll do it again. So next time we don't have a guest, we'll do it again. It is my favorite thing to do. And I actually learned a lot. You know, you spend a lot of time with somebody and you think, oh, I kind of know their story.
Right.
And I learned a lot of new things too.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're going to learn a lot today as well. So first up, every time you hear our podcast, you hear the pre-roll advertisement from Vandergrift, Toyota, Acura, and Honda. Yeah. And we actually have the owner-operator in today. So this is a guy who I met, it's got to be 15 years ago, at least at this point, maybe more. We were shooting a story about some sort of car rebate or whatever. And they were, the Honda brand was not doing either. So I was like, oh, let's go talk to that guy because he doesn't have a dog in the fight. Like doesn't,
sure.
You know, he'll give me an honest answer. And I literally bought a car while we were there because he was so like honest and forthcoming.
You don't always have to do that in order to get an interview. You don't always have to like buy an entire thing of their product, but you know.
But so we get a lot of questions from folks about, listen, car buying, it's such a tricky, I feel like Heath takes care of that in your family.
He does, but up until I was 35, I did it myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes with my dad, you know, but like I felt like I had the mode of doing it with my dad, then the empowered woman mode where I think I know what I was doing and it all went okay, but I gladly sort of default to Heath now, but I would like to be able to, you know, stand on my own 2 feet a little bit.
All right,
better.
well, let's find out. Let's welcome him. And Charlie Evans is the owner-operator of Toyota, Vandergrift Toyota, Acura, and Honda. We appreciate you being here. First off, thank you for being our sponsor for our first 2 seasons. You believed in us when we had 0 listeners, and here we are now. So we appreciate you.
Yes, exactly.
We appreciate you being here. So I have to say, when people come into the dealership, and I know you're probably a little removed from the actual sales transaction, I would imagine at this point in your career, there's a bit of like an assumed inequity that I think a lot of people walk in with, thinking like, they're going to rip me off. And we're just so far away from that, I think. Why does that linger, do you think?
Well, I think it comes from people actually getting ripped off and hearing stories. I mean, it still happens. I mean, and the perception of somebody getting ripped off may differ from consumer to consumer. So, you know, people have a lot of angst and a lot of anxiety about buying a car. It's the second largest purchase. For a lot of people, it's the largest purchase. And we do it every day, and they don't do it, you know, hopefully every couple of years.
Right.
And so a lot of that comes from truth for people's experience and stuff like that. But with the transparency on the internet and you being able to see and compare, and, you know, before people didn't have 20 banks that they could go to and make sure they got their financing straightened out. They didn't have, invoices all over the place where you can see what the dealer about.
Message boards. What did you pay?
Yeah,
what did you pay?
You know,
do you think that hurts or helps the transaction that there's so much more information available now to consumers?
Well, I think it helps the consumer feel a little bit more comfortable about coming in. At least they have some education part of being able to say, okay, well, at least I have a basic idea. Because a lot of people, you know, I've been in the business 30 years, and when I first got in the business, there was people that came in and had no idea. Like
totally.
Zero.
No, that would be me going in for my first car. Like, I don't know, I want it to be cute, and I have $850.
Right. I have $850.
So what do you have,
I want to make $200 a month. What can you show me? And then they show you something, and, you know, then you buy it, and then you may or may not have gotten what they consider a good deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
You know.
But now we can look it up. We can see reviews. We can see people test driving it. I mean, there's YouTube reviews of every single vehicle showing every compartment. So is it people show up and they're just like, they know what the price should be?
To a degree, yeah. They got a basic idea of what. Now that's been different over the last couple of years, right? You know, we you know, just 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago before the pandemic, people would start, you know, actually below invoice. Hey, I know what you paid. I want to pay less than that.
Right.
You know, where nowadays it's like, okay, I see what the sticker is. How much over that are you going to charge me?
Yeah.
So there's been a shift, but I think like we discussed before, it's getting back to normal. We're starting to get some inventory, and things will get, you know, a little planed out. There will be an adjustment period because there's a lot of people, you know, the difference between this time and actually when we met during the recession.
Yeah, 2008.
People had a lot of money this time, and so they were willing to pay more payment, pay more down payment, that kind of stuff. But now, you know, they go to trade it in. They're like, wait a minute, you know, what do you mean I can't get over MSRP for my car now?
Right, for sure.
You know, and we were paying, like I was paying well over MSRP for for cars to have them in the used because I didn't have any new.
Yeah,
so I would
you
have
just
to
needed
pay,
something to
Yeah.
sell.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the few transactions where you walk in and there's a negotiable price there, and everyone, of course, you want the very best. I mean, I want to walk out of there and for the guy to go, what the hell just happened? And then me drive away and that's great. But I think that the other thing as well, like I recently bought a Hyundai from a Vandergrift dealership, and when I walked, I was obsessively looking at this car on the internet. They had announced it months before and they were just coming off the truck. And I definitely knew more about the car than the salesperson did. Because listen, I had one thing that I needed to concentrate on, and he's got 10 or 12 trims or, of however many models and stuff. So I think that one of the important things is kind of giving these people a little bit of grace sometimes. Like you're so hyper-focused. So you talked about, at the end of the day, I think people are price driven. So in today's economy, in today's car market, what is a good deal? Invoice, a little under, 1,000 over? Where should I be?
Well, a good deal is always been defined by what you feel like is a good deal, right? And I'll be honest with you, some of the happiest customers paid the most money just because they were treated so well. We always talk about that. There's a reason why you have Kmart and there's a reason why you have Neiman Marcus, maybe not Kmart, but you go to
Kmart. That's a good throwback. I love Kmart.
You go to Dillard's and compare it to
Neiman's.
Compare to Neiman's, and it's all about service, right? And you're paying 5 times as much for something similar because you're getting the treatment that you want. So it depends on the model. It depends on availability. It depends on what you're comfortable with, right? I mean, nothing's a good deal if you're paying more than what you expected to pay, and it makes you struggle every month. Because then every single month you're looking at that payment and you're regretting your decision that you did that, and you don't feel like you got a good deal.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot of times. People get emotional and they'll be like, well, I got to have a car today. My car broke down yesterday. I got to have a car today. I don't care what it costs. I'll just have to figure it out. Well, that's a terrible way to start.
Yeah, for sure.
Start the negotiations off of.
Yeah, emotion and logic don't occupy the same space at the same time, we often say. So when somebody's walking into the dealership, I mean, your ideal customer is armed with what? I mean, what should I know coming in?
They know their budget. They know about what car and trim level they would like, and they know if it fits in that ingredients of what they're trying to conjure up. Yeah.
And then what about financing?
Yeah, financing is tricky now.
Should they know, like, okay, I've secured my own, or I have this much, or do people come in and say, I'm just going to find out what the dealership has for financing?
People do it all different ways. I mean, people will generally look at different rates online, look at their bank, see what they have. Dealerships typically have better rates, especially if there's a incentive from the manufacturer, if there's a subvented rate, meaning they're spawning a 2.9, a 3.9, a 0%, that kind of stuff. That changes a lot because you can get a great rate at your bank, but if the dealer has 0%, if the manufacturer has 0%, then there's no comparison. And so, but knowing what you should about pay, just having some knowledge of where you're at in your situation. You should know what your credit score is. You should know what you have down. You should know what, about you can afford and how many years you want to go or months you want to go on your loan, because that's a big deal too. If you just say, hey, I want to be at $400 a month and somebody sets you up at 84 months, that's not necessarily a good deal if you're trying to buy a $25,000 car.
Right.
So that's, just having some basic knowledge. And, like you said, you like to do things on your own. But I mean, most people, when they're making a decision like that, take somebody with them, whether it's their friend or family member or dad or
bodyguard.
Whoever. Yeah, husband,
someone,
wife.
Right. Someone who can insert that logic in there.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about things like, let's talk about financing, does that put the consumer in a better position? So if I'm financing through your dealership, does that maybe open up a little bit of more wiggle room in terms of negotiating a price because there's a better deal for you using in-house financing, or not necessarily?
Usually, if you use our financing, they're going to pay us to do it. So, I mean, we do a lot of loans for not only Toyota, but a bunch of other banks, and they pay us either a percentage of the loan or just a flat fee. Most of the time for us, especially if you had your own financing and we were trying to match or beat it, it's just a flat fee. They'll pay us a couple $100 to do the loan. But we would always prefer to do it because if you have great credit and I send that deal to, let's say, Toyota, and then somebody else comes in 5 minutes later and they have a medium to rougher credit, I could say, listen, I've sent you, 10 deals in a row that were perfect credit. I need some help on this one. And that person may not be able to get anywhere close to the rate that we can get them going through Toyota than on their own.
Yeah.
a lot of times that happens.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, and you can kind of be kind to your neighbor. You can use your good credit to benefit other people. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, we use it for sure. I mean, because if your portfolio looks good with your banks, then they tend to lend you on your customers a little bit more. I mean,
okay. So go ahead.
Do y'all do leases?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I remember growing up, and I don't know if you thought this. I just felt like I always was taught that leases are just, this is what you do when you want something and you can't truly afford it. And like, you're going to put yourself in a bad financial situation. It seems now more people are doing them, or it's more of like I don't know, perhaps there's maybe not as much a stigma around it. Well, who is a lease good for?
Well, like my mom leases a car. She wants a new car every 3 years. And even though I pay her payment, she wants to be at $350 a month. So I have to come up with whatever the difference is to get her to $350. And then she wants a new car every couple of years. But I mean, leasing used to be terrible in certain circumstances. Yeah. So when you lease a car, they give you a guaranteed future value of the car. And then they set that to the end. And then that's why your payment's lower. So they defer that amount to the end. Well, in the old leases, they used to be called open-ended leases. And so they would just set that number, whatever you wanted. And then at the end of the term, you just owed that. And so now leasing's a lot different. So leasing, if you're, let's just use round numbers. If you're buying a $30,000 car, they say, hey, it's going to be worth 16 at the end of 36 months. They're guaranteeing you that value. If you stay in the miles, they'll buy it back for that amount. So if you can't get more than that, then they'll buy it back for that. That guarantees you won't be upside down in the car. Another thing, business people that write off their payment, it's a huge discount for them because they get to write off their payment on a lease. And it allows a lot of times for you to buy more car, newer car, turn it quicker, meaning every 3 years you're buying. As long as you stay within the mileage that you agree upon, you get to buy a new car. You're never out of warranty. A lot of cars have free maintenance. And so you constantly stay in there. And all they want to, a lot of people just want to worry about their payment and their gas. That's it. I just want insurance, car payment, and gas, and that's it. And they don't want to worry about putting brakes and tires and all the maintenance stuff in a 60K service. And
right. It's always under warranty.
But somebody that says, hey, I drive my cars till the wheels fall off, leasing's not a great idea for them, because I try to put it in the sense of, people you're renting the car. That's basically what you're doing. It's a great high-end, and Honda, Toyota, especially Acura, has fantastic leases. Like, the payments are so low, and then people are like, I'll just trade out every 3 years. That's fair enough for me. They get tax credits and all these great incentives from the bank, and it makes it worth it for them. They can drive a really, really nice car with a lot of equipment for hundreds of dollars less a month, and they know what their payment's going to be, and then they just worry about filling it up with gas and paying insurance. One
of the things that was happening, and we did this kind of coming out of the pandemic, I was driving a vehicle that I was leasing, and because the used car market was so overinflated, they had set the residual value, but the car's actual value was like 20 grand more than what the guarantee was. And I was able to sell the car, pocket the 20 grand to come out of the lease, and then buy something new. Is that still
only
happening?
You, Steve. Or maybe not only you.
I sold it to Charlie.
Yeah, she sold it to me.
I was like, hey, I've got a 21 Yukon or whatever it was.
The first car he bought from me, he was doing his story like he said. We were on the showroom floor, and I said that, and it was during the recession. Yeah. And you were like, well, is it hard to sell cars? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and they're coming out with these great programs. I said, you can lease that car. I think I said it was like $350 a month. $250 a month. And then it was like a couple of days later, and he goes, hey, it was really nice meeting you all. Hey, is that deal a real deal? I go, well, yeah.
Like, I didn't make it up for TV, right?
I go, yes, of course. He goes, I'll take it. And that's how we. And
it was
a two-door red Honda Accord.
No, it was black.
Was it?
And I'll tell you, it was black. It was a two-door black coupe. Okay. And it was one of the nicest cars I've ever driven. And my sticking point with it, there was a lot of plastic trim, which I didn't love. Okay. So Charlie's like, well, we could take that and dip it to look like faux wood and then reinstall it. Mm-hmm. I said, but I'm just leasing it. He goes, no, you're fine. You're adding value to the car. So like as long as you don't make it pink,
it's like we don't really. You're renting a place and you're like, I'm going to get granite in here instead of like whatever. Yeah.
No, it was great.
It was pretty minimal.
Yeah. That was a really nice car and a really nice car payment. So are we seeing that still with folks that are kind of coming off of these leases? Should people check their lease to see if there is equity in the value of their car?
Yeah, for sure. Anybody that's turning in their lease, saying that, they just want to be done with it, definitely check and see what it's worth first before you do that. I mean, I've had numerous, like my pastor, I traded him out and we wrote him a check for $8,000. He traded it in, but I wrote him an equity check for the difference. And he's like, and he was on a lease too, and put no money down on that one in the beginning, and then did it. My mom, same way. I've gotten her 2 cars during the recession because they just keep, adding value. So it's easy.
Because it's a trade-in, technically, are you then also only paying tax on the difference between that value and the value of the new car?
Not on a lease. So you can't use that lease as a tax credit against a car. But like in your case, when you sold it, you can sell it. And then if the manufacturer has, like we do sometimes, we have state sales tax credits, meaning they use old leases as trade-ins on new leases. And so you get an actual tax credit from turn-ins that they've had before. And so I could buy your car, my nephew, I had to buy his car, his Acura lease. I gave him money for it, paid it off, and then I gave him full tax credits on the new car. So it was 2 separate transactions, but he didn't care. He saved a bunch of money.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So even for people who are not coming in with a lease return, so if somebody's walking in and saying, okay, I've got a trade-in, there's a million places to try and see what that is worth. What are the legitimate places that people should be turning to online to say, okay, I want a baseline idea
Only
of what
us.
my car.
No, I mean, there's.
Is there a calculator on your website?
Yeah, actually there is.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go on our website and it'll give you an estimated trade value.
If you're truthful about the condition.
Right. If the condition's right, it's not been any accidents, the mileage is correct, it doesn't need, tires, brakes, windshield, that kind of stuff, dent stings. But yeah, it's pretty close. But it gives you a basic idea. And some of them are worth more and some are worth less. It depends on what the vehicle is. I mean, if it's, you got to figure if it's a super hot model or a specific color that's rare, that would be obviously worth more. It doesn't go into just the averages. Mm-hmm. And then if it's a certain other color that we have sometimes that are less desirable, then it would be a deduct. So.
I've seen a couple green cars around town.
I have a green car right now. It's more of a moss green or rockwood green.
It's a different kind of green.
Yes, it's a nice green.
Yeah, like lime green.
But there's a few that I saw car shopping. I was like, wow, that is a really bold color. I wonder what resale would be like for that.
That is a purple BMW.
Yeah.
I have a friend who drives a purple BMW. I'm like, what dead pimp did you buy that car off?
Well, they don't lose it in a parking lot.
I mean,
for sure when you walk out, you know where your car is. I would love advice on if there's somebody, we mentioned we have a lot of parents that obviously listen to this show. If somebody is coming in and they were like, I really don't know what to get for the next car, and they know they need 2 car seats, they know they need space, like they need to go to soccer games, they might need to be like Steve going glamping or camping as he called it with, the troop. What are like the go-to cool parent reliable vehicles?
Well, it depends on what you consider cool. Like my wife, she could drive pretty much whatever she wants. That's
I would think so. That's part of the deal with what you do. Yeah.
And so, when we were younger, and she was in her 20s, we had our first kid 23 years ago. She wouldn't drive a minivan. I'm not driving a minivan. I'm not going to do that. I'm too young, blah, blah, blah. We had another kid. And she's like, well, just bring one home. So I brought one home.
I'll just use it secretly when I drop them.
She's like, you can't get me out of this thing. It's got 27 cup holders. It's got the automatic doors. It's got
built-in vacuum.
Perfect.
And the way that the doors slide.
Yeah. And she drove that. She drove a van forever for, 8 or 10 years until the kids got old enough. Then she switched to an SUV. And now she still drives an Escalade, even though we don't have any kids anymore. But I'm like, would you like something small? She goes, nope. I like my big car. And, I'm like, you don't worry about it parking. She's not been doing it forever. So she doesn't mind at all.
Okay. So that's the front end. So you're feeling good. You've got, you're paying, you're comfortable with what you're paying. You got your budget, you got the car. I mean, these days I'm assuming that, I remember back, I brought a buddy of mine to you to look at a Toyota, and it was like a Camry, and there were 100 of them on the lot. I don't know that that's the case these days anymore. Maybe they're not going to have every color and trim and interior. So people need to be a little bit flexible, but you find the car, you're happy with the price. Now the guy in the back, the finance guy comes in, and he's got all sorts of crap to sell me.
That's right.
What do I, just between the three of us, what do I legitimately need? And what can I say? All right, like you're just trying to, come on.
Well, it depends on, first of all, how long you're going to keep the car. That's a big thing. A lot of the cars come with really good warranties and roadside assistance from the beginning. But for instance, if you were, let's say you came in, you knew I didn't get a good deal on my last car, and I know I'm upside down. I have zero money to put down, but I need another car because this one's old or it's broken or whatever the case may be. And one of the products I always tell people to get is gap protection, because if you don't have a big down payment and you don't have a lot of equity, that gap protection is great. And I can tell you it's great because we own the gap company and we lose money on that product because people use it so much.
Do you know what gap is?
So gap covers, so let's say you bought a car that's $30,000 MSRP, but you rolled $5,000 from your old car because it was upside down into it. Plus tax, title, and license, let's say you're financing $10,000 more than what it's worth. Well, if you total that car or it gets stolen and not returned, you're responsible for that difference. Well, with gap protection, they cover that difference, and it's huge. It's a big deal. So gap is most customers get gap unless they're put 50% down, then I'd say, hey, you don't really need gap. That's not really a good product for you. And then how long are you going to keep your car? Because, if you're going to keep the car longer than a few years, extended warranty is great because, over the last 30 years, they really haven't gotten that much more expensive, but cars have. And the electronics is such a big deal now. It's not like, hey, engine transmission. Well, most manufacturers have, 6-year, 7-year, 100,000, 80,000 mile powertrains. And so it's really not that. It's all electronic stuff. It's all the ABS and the airbag systems and all that stuff that really, really costs a lot of money. I mean, one little thing, say a warranty costs $2,500. Well, if you use that one time over a 7-year period of time, it pays for itself. And then you could continue to use it over and over and over again. I always tell people, warranties are our biggest deal, but some of the other products, it just depends on what your experience has been. Like if you're used to losing key fobs a lot, there's a product that they'll replace them. If you're used to banging into the curb a lot, like my wife used to do years and years and years ago, that's a good product because it'll repair the wheel tire if you rub it up against the curb.
wheel and tire.
How'd she change her ways?
She just bought a bigger car.
Now she goes over the curb and Escalade.
The Escalade, she does not care.
I do the wheel and tire. And I do one that's also cosmetic. Usually you have to bend the rim in order for them to fix it. But this particular one that I do, it's cosmetic. So,
but if you scrape it. Yeah.
Right. So, and I have black rims on my car now. So when you scrape it, they turn silver. So it really is noticeable.
Stands out.
So I do that. And then Dallas, I feel like you got to get the tire protection. People are constantly. But the nice thing about it, so I just got out of a vehicle before I bought that Hyundai. And I called the company and I said, listen, is there do you do a refund on I've never used it. I bought it and never used it. And they said, yeah,
absolutely.
I think they've refunded 89% of what I paid because I had it for a year or whatever it was.
That's
and never once used it. So totally worth it.
You only pay for the coverage that you use. Yeah. So, and it's great. And, and a lot of our customers buy a lot of stuff, but then they have a down payment. It's like, we'll use that as down payment when they trade their car in. We'll get all their cancellations and say, hey, you have $2,700 worth of
that's cool.
down payment if you want to put it on this car. And they do that too. So that's another great thing about having it. And, the difference is I would rather buy products in the finance department than I would on the front of the car. Because if you buy a car for MSRP as opposed to invoice, that's over. But if you buy the same amount in back-end products and buy the car for invoice, you can always turn those in and use them as credits, so it lowers your principal balance by quite a bit.
And for our viewers who are like, okay, well, so invoice being what you paid for it, MSRP being what it's on the market for, essentially. Right?
Yeah, correct.
I learned so much.
Yeah. Okay, so what?
So somebody said, I'd rather,
this is great.
I'll give you $1,000 off the front end of the car if you buy a $1,000 warranty. The warranty is always a better deal. Yeah. Just because you can always cancel it when you trade it in or if it gets totaled or whatever and you get your money back.
We also see a lot of these and again, in a family car, maybe I was like, maybe I could go for a light interior. And then I was like, nope, we have 2 boys. I'm going to be afraid of this car. Every time I get into it, we did the black. I love it. But there's always we'll protect the leather, we'll protect the fabric, we'll protect the outside, we'll do all of this kind of stuff. Any wisdom there for people?
The good news is that we have, and most legitimate places have caps on what they can sell that stuff for. Meaning, as you said, getting a bad deal or whatever. Yeah. If somebody takes wheel protection, which I think the cap is $499, but back in the day, people would sell it for $3,000. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just because somebody said they wanted to be at a certain payment, and they could just put it on the deal. Hey, we're going to give you all this great stuff, and the FTC has really cracked down on that that kind of poor behavior, which is good for all of us because then we don't get judged by some outliers that don't do business the right way. We pride ourselves in kind of taking care of people, and we even have a 3-day love or to leave it. You don't like the car, just bring it back. We're not going to. It's not a big deal. You don't like it, we don't want you in it. You either come get something else or just come get your money back.
So I think that people feel really pressured in the the finance office. They go in there kind of mentally prepared for like, here's my budget, here's what I'm going to negotiate. Then they get back there and they're sold all this stuff that they probably haven't given a lot of thought about.
Right.
Is it a now or never proposition? Or if I buy a car from you, can I in a week come back and say, you know what, like, I think I do want that wheel and tire.
You can.
Can you just look at them and make sure they're still in new condition and I can buy it then?
Sure. The only thing that they'll tell you is that this might be the only chance you have to put it in your payment.
Okay.
You can come back and get it,
Pay it cash.
but you may have to pay cash if the loan has already been funded. And that's another thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys, because I think that there's a misconception in any type of contract in the state of Texas where if somebody comes to your house, and you and I have talked about this numerous times when you have customers that call you from other dealerships that have had a bad experience. And
never from yours.
Well, I don't know. Have we had?
No.
I was about to say, have we?
No.
Probably didn't tell me.
No, he would. That's the thing about Steve. He
Trust
definitely
me.
would.
Well, because it would make me look good because all I would have to do is call Charlie and he'd fix it. And then I'd look like a hero.
I fix other people's problems a lot of times. But in the state of Texas, if you sign a contract and leave in the car, you own the car. So that you there's no 3 days to think about it. Legally, that is. Now we allow it because I just don't want you in a car if you're not happy. It just doesn't make any sense.
Feels weird.
It's just, you're going to hate me every month. You write that check, or every month.
And you're not going to come back.
And you're not going to come back. And you're going to tell your friends, and you're going to get on your Facebook. See, it used to be that person's going to tell 3 people. Well, they might tell 5,000 or 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And so, we don't want to. And the only reason why we say 3 days is because after that, the taxes are paid, and we can't go back and do it.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd do it then too, because it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it for us.
Yeah, I think that people have a misconception that you have a 3-day right to cancel in Texas, and
That's
don't.
only if somebody comes to your house.
Right.
That's like if they
like a
sell
vacuum
you
salesman.
aluminum siding, vacuum sales, any type of contract with there. You have 72 hours to think about it, and you can always rescind it.
Best advice for people kind of who they're like, okay, I think I need a new family car. I mean, any kind of parting wisdom you want to make sure that they have?
No, just come prepared. Bring everybody in the family if you can. I mean, if the kids are crazy, then obviously, somebody might want to babysit them or something like that. But, it's good to have everybody involved that's going to be in the car all the time. I mean, you have a big family now, and you want everybody to kind of have their say so in it and make them feel good, and because they're going to be in the car a long time too.
Yeah, we made the drive. Like I was saying, I was concerned that this vehicle was smaller than the one that I had been in. Turns out it's just fine. But I said to Doug, listen, we got to drive out to the dealership with the kids because I'll lose sleep at night if I buy this car and won't know until I get it home if they fit in it, if they're going to be kicking my seat back there or whatever. So we had everybody pile in, and of course they were like, we love it, get it.
No, we've had numerous, husbands come by a car, come back next day, I got to get out of this deal. My wife's going to leave me. I'm like, no problem. They're like, you got to help me. I'm like, okay, no problem. So bring whoever's going to be involved in the decision making. Try out the car seats.
Yeah,
if you're buying a bigger car, make sure it fits in your garage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're buying your first EV, make sure you fully understand what you're in for on an EV before you go jumping into it, because if you don't, and it's a tough deal.
Before we let you go, I just want to close with this. I did want to ask you, I think people got used to the idea of market adjustments during COVID. Are we still seeing that? I mean, are people walking in and paying over sticker at this point?
On a few cars, on a few of the really, really tough to get one-off cars are still bringing a little bit over, but mostly I would say 80, 90, 95%. No, that's not. That's kind of gone in the past, and everybody's moving forward and kind of getting back to the old way. I mean, for a couple of years, I would have maybe 10 to 20 cars in stock. We have 140, which is still a lot less than when I first met you. We had 600.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you said, we had 50 of this, 50 of that. Well,
you just go out and pick one.
Yeah. But still a lot of people buying cars that are incoming, make their deal on it, and then they have first right of refusal when it gets there. And that's always easy too. Yeah. Because if they don't want it and it's a hot car, we'll just sell it to somebody else.
Tell people where they can find you guys.
So we're in Arlington on I-20 in between Cooper and Matlock, right across from the Parks Mall. And all 3 of my stores are connected. So we're all in the same area. So you can literally walk next door to each one of them.
You want a Toyota, you want a Acura, you want a Honda.
And you can always come see me directly. I mean, you said something earlier. I was working a deal yesterday with a salesperson, and, we made the deal over the phone and the guy in Austin. So I'm still involved and all that stuff.
It's funny.
So.
I find you out on the lot.
Yeah, no, seriously, I actually quite often will send somebody your way, and he's like, here's my cell number. Tell me what you want. Like, I'll take
That's
care
amazing.
of you.
That is very, very unique.
Yeah. So if you want Charlie's cell phone number, just go ahead and
you can have it. It's on my business card. It's not a big deal.
Thank you so much for coming in. And again, for
problem.
your support of our project. We appreciate you.
Of course.
Okay. I feel like you got a big education here.
I
in
did.
car
You
buying.
probably maybe didn't as much because this feels like it's totally your wheelhouse. It's like
love
you're so
car
passionate
shopping.
about it.
I
I'm
love
just
it.
so.
Doug makes fun of me.
about
He
it.
just got a new car. But the one he had driven previously, he had for like 14 years.
Do you?
I mean,
Okay, so he's a drive into the ground. Well, 14 years
Yes.
isn't drive into the ground, but
And it was close.
So do you put your opinions into what he's going to buy? Like are you?
I mean, I give some feedback in terms of like what I think is practical, but also like for him, it had been 14 years. I was like, get whatever you want, babe. Like you're going to drive this thing apparently for the next 14 years.
That was the best sentence ever.
What?
The get whatever you want, babe.
Well, but it's,
Can we title this show that?
Yeah, we will. But I will say that he is also very much like, hey, here's what I want. And which means now I will kind of work my network, which is usually a call to Charlie to be like, hey, I know. And that's the other thing I will say about him. If you contact him, I'll say, hey, this person, and they'll be like, oh, actually, you know what? I think I want a Chevy. And he'll be like, well, we have a Chevy store also in our family of dealerships.
Yeah,
so he'll be like, Doug's big problem the last time when he just bought this car, I was like, what do you want? And he was like, well, I either want this like EV Cadillac, or I might want this Genesis, or I might want this Jeep, or I might want that. And I was like, dude, you got to like, give me like 2. Cause like, I'm not working these deals with 4 or 5 different people
that's
here.
So
like,
me. Because
there's a bit of work involved, for them that they want to sell you a car.
Who drives the kids more? You?
Right now I do because of our change in schedule, but we both drive them. I have 3 rows in my car, which I like. I just like having it. I like being able to, and he's like, what for the, we can take 2 cars. I was like, yeah, but if it's just us, like my mother-in-law, like I like to just have her in there with the kids.
Great for
or
when
actually
we
put the kids in the 3rd row and then have whoever sit in the 2nd row.
Yeah. I want a 3rd row. Next car.
You just got a new car. I can
barely fit my own children in my
just got
car.
a new car. Heath just bought you that car.
No, I'm obsessed with it. I love it. But I'm just saying, eventually, there's like nobody can ride with me.
Yeah. All right. Hey, we want you to ride with us every Tuesday morning. A new episode drops at 7 a.m. You can find us on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. And if you do nothing else today, go find yourself a friend you don't need to clean the house for. We'll see you next time.